All right. Hey, good morning and welcome. It is Wednesday morning and really hot, hot August day. I know most people are probably out chasing water already, and that's great. So we'll keep the background noise to a minimum. I'll keep everybody muted so the recording is nice and clean, and we'll just jump right into it. All right. So a couple of big things to cover today. Obviously, anything we say today gets changed tomorrow at 11 o'clock when the USDA gives us their August WASDE report, right? So let's just talk about what the two things are that are really going to be important on that WASDE. First, you've got what the yield's going to be here, right? Are they going to stay at 179? Are they going to raise it, lower it? Or are they going to stay at 50.8? Or are they going to raise it? Or are they going to lower it? So that's the big question. And then the second question is, what are they going to do with world production numbers? CONAB yesterday came out and lowered the Brazilian crop by almost 7%. They decreased it from 93 million metric tons down to about 86 million metric tons. That's a big number. You're talking 250 million bushels there of world supply that's got to go somewhere else. And um, and remember, there's other issues too, right? There's issues in Ukraine. There's issues in China. There's issues revolving around corn that are probably bigger than what the USDA is really going to recognize tomorrow. But yeah, I think that's a more important issue and a bigger issue than what they're going to say on yield. And we're going to talk about that here in just a second when we look at the supply and demand tables at the end. With soybeans, I think it's all about yield. The amazing thing about soybeans is that Brazil had a massive crop, the largest that they've ever grown, and yet soybeans are still holding, 13.50 a bushel, right? So you've got these massive crops that have come in, and you've got projections for monster crops here, and yet we're not selling this thing off at all. And I think that's got a lot of people off balance in the marketplace. If you go back and you read headlines, going back to um, last August, right? Last August, everybody was super bearish. Oh my gosh, COVID is going to ruin everything, and August 12th is the day that the bull market really started in earnest, right? Like we'd already bottomed and we'd already started working higher, but August 12th is the day where the USDA came out and gave this massively bearish report a year ago, and the market took off and went away anyway. And then you fast forward to December, January, February, and the news was all, oh hey, yeah, we've got a big market, but don't worry, we're going to plant so many acres, and we're gonna yield so much. This is going to be a 1 year wonder, right? We're gonna fix this supply problem or the demand problem with this year's crop weather. Well, look at what's happened. We went through a near perfect pollination season, right? The 2 weeks prior to corn pollination and the last 2 weeks were near ideal for most of the corn belt. Yeah, we had some heat, and yeah, we have some dry pockets, but overall, rain went where the bushels are really going to be grown, and yet we have not broken this market down. Same with soybeans. Yesterday the forecast started to flip um, to wetter for soybeans, and we all know that soybeans are made in August. And yesterday we started to flip, and guess what? We flipped, and boom, we're up 15 cents overnight. So what's going on here, right? We should be, if you listen to the narrative from last August through January, February, we should not be trading where we are, because all of the things that they, quote marks, the bears, have said are bearish have all materialized. We had slowdowns in demand. We had perfect growing weather. We had COVID. We had a shutdown. We had all of these things, and yet we have not busted this market. Now, I know we're off the highs. I get that and fully aware, but if you listen to them, we should be much, much lower. And I think what the market is telling us, look at this chart formation that we have on this chart, okay? We have the high that was set in early June. We immediately plummeted, and oh my gosh, we're gonna, growing season's great. There's no demand. Brazil's got a monster crop, 130 some million metric tons, just an amazing crop. Oh my gosh, we're gonna die. Well, ever since then, we've never even challenged this low. I mean, look, the closest we got to this low was 20 cents. We never challenged it, and every break has been bought significantly. So we've created these monster wedges on these charts. And wedges, we talked about this last week, they're awful. They're mentally draining. They chop you up, they go up, they come right back down. And if you've looked at the trading days the last 22 days or something like that, it's just exhausting. They buy the 8:30 bar and then they kill the 9 o'clock bar. You're up, you're down, you're all around, and you can't get any rhythm going in this market. That's consistent with the triangle. So, when we've are starting to react bullishly, when all of the bearish narrative has successfully been executed, what's left to trade? I think that we're now shifting to realizing that this demand market that we have is stronger than what maybe the trade wants to see, and it's getting ready to recognize that. So with soybeans here, we had this wedge, right? Which there's no science behind drawing wedge lines, right? You take the most recent high and you take the first reversal point and you draw a line off of them. Okay, same thing here. Low, you find the first reversal point and you draw a line off of it. That creates a wedge. That's not rocket science, and there's nothing magic about these lines, but markets tend to react to them. So we have this big breakdown, and then again we have this bullish, it's called a shadow, right? We reject these lower prices and we keep rejecting them. And then yesterday we had a really significant day. See this green bar right here? I'm going to zoom in just a little bit because we did this in all three grains yesterday. So we have this green candle, and if you look, the green box fully encloses the red box prior. It's called a bullish engulfing candle. Now, I'm not a huge candlestick guy, but it is a pattern, and it's something to remember. And what's significant to me is that we've got follow through to it this morning, and we've busted back above this down trend line, and we're testing the bottom side of it. If we break through this trend line, you now have a false breakout followed by a new breakout and a reversal. And I think that could really catch fire. And you're having this happen on the heels of wetter forecasts right into the critical stage on soybeans. And so I think that could get really, really bullish really fast, especially if the USDA, maybe they lower yield a little bit. Maybe they increase demand. Maybe they don't change anything on soybeans. I think that would be pretty bullish in and of itself. But right now, this trade action is really good. And if there wasn't a report tomorrow, I think we'd be blowing up out of here. I would expect us to have to survive tomorrow. I think we're going to look at kind of these recent lows here as a line in the sand and say if we get news tomorrow that's so bearish that we're going to turn around and violate them, then we'll probably start to scratch our heads just a little bit. But the reality is, I don't see anything that's going to be bearish. I mean, how much more bearish can you get, right? Everything that they've said is that should be bearish has happened, and we're not reacting to it. So the only thing left is now we got to actually rely and double down on some of these bullish fundamentals that are happening. All right, So that's soybeans. I know we're looking up. We're way too tight on soybeans. Let's just refresh everybody's memory on what the balance sheet looks like. This is what the USDA said in July. I don't expect this to change a whole lot. If they increase yield, then this grows a little bit. If they decrease it, even by 1 bushel an acre, we're at a 1% use. We're extremely tight, and I haven't seen anything news-wise that would suggest that that's changing. I know they're saying, hey, we're gonna plant all the acres in South America to soybeans, and they're gonna have huge yields, and the crush margin in China is not very good, and meal is weak. Whatever. All that's been known for a really long time, and are holding $13. So until that breaks and something really changes this balance sheet, we're too tight to hold where we're at, and we should be working higher soon on soybeans. All right, let's look at corn. Here is the weekly chart on corn. Again, we're coiling. We're all the recent action that's been painful to watch has been really tame in context of the move that we've had, right? So same analysis as last week there. On the daily chart, it looks a little bit more friendly. Same thing that we had yesterday in soybeans. We had wasn't a bullish engulfing candle, but it's these long shadows. If you look, every time price probes lower, it rejects it. And every time it probes higher, we reject it. So we have this massive zone of indecision. And this morning here, if we break up out of here and close where we are or higher, then we will have busted through this entire zone of indecision in one trading day. That would lead really bullish, especially in context of the global fundamentals, right? You've got the Brazilian crop coming down. You've got issues in China. You've got issues in Ukraine. Our yield is anything but certain, given the fundamentals, right? We're terrible in the West. We're really, really strong in the East from a yield standpoint. And the $1 million question is, where does that all shake out? And we're not going to know tomorrow. We're going to know what the USDA says, but we're not going to know where they're going to end up. So I don't think tomorrow's report is that big of a deal as far as yield goes. And here's why. If you look at our yield, if we increase demand, right, and have great yield, our carryout stays where it is. And why would we increase demand? Well, because the global supply is down, and the USDA has failed to recognize it for months. And there's a large percentage of the analysts that think that Brazil's going to keep getting smaller, that their 7% reduction yesterday is just the beginning. If that keeps going lower, the USDA has no choice but to recognize it, and the global demand's not going down, it's actually increasing. So they've got to put those bushels somewhere, and we're the only game in town. If Brazil doesn't have it and Ukraine doesn't have it, we are it. So this number has to come up above the 14.8. Remember this, a year ago on August 12th, versus what the USDA said our demand was going to be, they missed the carryout by 2 billion bushels, and they missed the demand number by almost 1 billion bushels of what was exportable. So you can't miss it by much more than that and still have any credibility at all, if they have any. So I think that this demand number is going to come up just because of the South American crop. I'm not trying to make that up. That's a fact. We know that the Brazil crop is too small, so we have to push those bushels somewhere else, and it's going to come here. So if you leave our yield where it is and increase that demand number, our carryout stays below this 9% number. If we hurt yield, which most analysts think we're going to do, we're sub $1 billion, and we're extremely tight on corn. And the bears said that can't happen, right? They said that if we have great pollination, then we're gonna break this market. They said if China doesn't buy during the summer, then they're not going to buy at all. They said all these things should happen, and they did, and we're holding 550 corn. So what's left? I think I think we're just getting more bullish fundamentals, not less. And the noise be damned. Um, it can't shake you from your convictions, because you got to recognize this trade action for what it is, which is sideways, indecision, just trying to get to where we are. All right. So if there's anything going into this report that I think is a stop point that says, hey, we got to get out, it's probably down here in this 540 to 532 range, which would be this low set on July 26th. I probably don't want to see that go away, but I'm not going to overtrade it either. You know, we're already sold futures and we have long calls, so our position's really good from a cash standpoint, right? Most guys are between a third and a half sold. They've got long calls, and they've got half of their stuff uncovered as well. So I think that we're really set to trade this wedge pretty darn well. And if beans break out to the upside, corn's going to go with it. It's just too bullish not to. Now let's look at wheat. This is another bullish fundamental here in wheat, right? Why is wheat doing what it's doing? Because I thought we had the greatest Kansas harvest ever. I mean, we yielded massive, and the bears all said that that we had to go lower because we grew too big of a crop, and they said that our exports are terrible, and we haven't exported near enough. We're way behind seasonal pace, and they said all these things, and so we should be way lower. I mean, you listen to them, wheat should be at $2. Well, it's rallied $1.50 in a month and a half, and they said it couldn't happen. So why is it happening? Well, it's because of two things. Number one, we fed way more wheat than anybody wants to give credit for. Around Kansas, wheat has been in the feed ration, helping corn extend its useful life for months and months and months, and nobody has recognized it. Second, you've got a total disaster going on in Russia from a yield standpoint. Their yield is like half of what they originally said it was going to be. So all of a sudden, what the bears said should happen happened. We didn't export and we had a massive yield, but our world balance sheet collapsed right under our nose because we fed it all, and Russia didn't bail it out the way they thought it was. So wheat has exploded higher. International wheats this morning have all busted out to new highs. I think it's a matter of time before we do, because remember, the USDA has failed to recognize it again, right? We've talked about this over the last several weeks. They took our spring wheat crop in the Dakotas and collapsed it, but left our friends in Canada the same, when they have the same exact weather and the same exact situation. So the USDA is slow playing it, and as that catches up, we're going to explode higher. And if we did feed all that wheat, and now wheat's taking itself out of the food ration, what does that do to corn demand? Yep, you can't hide it anymore, right? You can't say it's not there, because now it all comes back to corn. If you can't feed wheat, you got to feed that. You got to feed meal. You got to feed something in order to make it work. So wheat is I think about to explode higher. A move above 724 to us would project significantly above $8, or at least a challenge of it. And I think corn's going to go with it as well to new highs. So patience, patience, patience. Let these things work through, and don't get dissuaded by what you read on Twitter or anything else, because the reality is people just talk their own positions on those platforms, right? You get very little actual objective news. So that's what we've got for you today. Our balance sheet's contracting. Nothing has changed that. And if the USDA starts to change it tomorrow, we will react really quickly, and I promise you we will change our mind if something were to materialize. But I think even with a massive yield, our balance sheet still contracts, because the fundamentals are just that strong moving forward. And I think that across all three of the grain markets that we trade. I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, please reach out and call. We're happy to talk to and dig deeper into any of these things that we've talked about. We work really, really hard to try to be objective on this information that we share, and I'm always a little bit more bullish than I am bearish, and I recognize that freely and admit it. But I promise you that with as much money as we have on the line, we will change bearish when it's time to. We will do that. There is always risk trading this business. We've got to be cognizant of it, and we got to trade within our limits and recognize that the markets can do what they want. But for now, that's our best analysis. I hope you guys have a great week, and we will talk to you next Wednesday.